Why do so many authors quit? Why are so many of you guys right now who think of yourself as a writer, who think you can do it, actually not writing and releasing anything out to the world? And today we are going to hear Haruki Murakami speak at length on why so many writers quit. And if you guys don't already know, Right Conscious is the headquarters of everything related to Murakami here on YouTube. In the playlist down below, you will see an ever blossoming library of videos that go over Murakami's books, his writing philosophy, and his life. And one quick note before we hear from Murakami, I believe in you. Your art can transform the world. And if we are going to create a literary renaissance, if we are going to go on a literary crusade together and create an educational and spiritual awakening through literature, then we actually do need you. And in this video, I'll explain the exact reason why authors quit. But if you don't want to watch it, just know that I have your back. The community has your back. And if you put the work in, we will be there to support you when it's your time to shine. But enough for me. Let us now hear from Murakami. And Murakami starts with why high IQ individuals or really smart people don't really like to write novels. And this is an important point about why so many writers quit. And he starts, quote, "The way I see it, people with brilliant minds are not particularly well suited to writing novels. Of course, some degree of intelligence and education and overall knowledge is necessary to turn one out. I myself am not entirely lacking in those areas. At least I think so, probably. But if someone were to ask me point blank, do you really think you are smart enough? I'd have a hard time sounding confident. In my considered opinion, anyone with a quick mind or an inordinately rich store of knowledge is unlikely to become a novelist. That is because the writing of a novel or the telling of a story is an activity that takes place at a slow pace, in low gear, so to speak, faster than walking, let's say, but slower than riding a bicycle. The basic speed of a person's mental processes may make it possible to work at that rate, or it may not. At any rate, I've witnessed a great many intelligent and quick-minded people, many hailing from fields other than literature, head off to new destinations after writing a novel or two. In a great many cases, their novels were brilliant and well written. A few of them may have even broken new ground, yet a scant few of those authors have remained in the ring. In fact, it seems to me that they got a taste of the novelist vocation and then made a quick exit." And this is somewhat a shocking point by Murakami because a lot of people who want to get into writing excelled back in high school, maybe in AP language or in kind of the high level English classes. They went to university for English or philosophy or something in the humanities. And they've always kind of had this dream to be a writer. And there are a lot of other writers who sucked at math and sucked at school and don't have a high IQ, and that's why they want to do it. But there's a subset of people who know that they are smart, know that they are intelligent, and look at a novel and are like, wow, I can do this. But that creates a lot of problems. First of all, as Murakami says, that it is a very roundabout way of making a point. That sitting down and spending a couple thousand hours working on a novel to show some theme or make some point that could be shown in a nonfiction article that took you 3 hours to write is kind of crazy. And it really does take an artistic ambition, a very slow-minded patience to be able to sit down and write something like a novel. And over time, over the course of decades. Because almost no first authors or second-time authors, and most of the time, third or fourth-time authors, don't do anything that's super innovative. It's not until they've been in the game for 15 or 20 years and release multiple long projects that they start becoming, or I should say even start peaking and really writing the Wind-Up Bird Chronicles, the Blood Meridians, the Infinite Jests, the Beloveds like Toni Morrison. Like, there are some exceptions, but most of the time it is never the first novel. And so some of these high IQ individuals also realize that, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I even enjoy doing this, but there's going to be no financial payoff for this. If you were really smart and could be an engineer, could be an accountant, could be an entrepreneur, and actually find some form of success, why would you be in a dying industry? The book industry right now, unless we turn things around, is like the newspaper industry back in like 2003. It is dying. And it would probably be better to jump ship now than stay in it. Like, for instance, this channel and what I'm doing, I would be much more successful and much more intelligent for my long-term plans of growing this channel if I even went to science fiction, or if I talked about narrative in video games, or narrative in rap lyrics or something like that. That would blow up. And most of the time, as we're seeing here, and for other authors who quit, and this probably isn't a lot of you guys, is that there is a false misconception of what a writer is and how you can attain success as an author. And that really demotivates a lot of people because right now, your prospects of being read are that you have to hope that you can write something and it's going to get noticed. You may have to pay people and find an agent. And the craziest statistic that is out there, and the New York Times released this, is that 98% of books that major publishers release sell fewer than 5,000 copies, which means that if you get published by Random House or Penguin, you are slated to make less than $10,000 for that novel, 98% of the time. And so you maybe have that reality where you do get published and make no money, unless you're the 2%, or you publish on Kindle and nobody buys it. But that was because a lot of the time people have this false expectation that becoming an author looks like the old days where you can just send something to a slush Bible and become famous, or post something online and it becomes famous. It's not like that anymore. As an author, you have to build you yourself, unless you have a bunch of money, your audience person by person in 2024. And yes, because we have scalable social media and blogs and stuff, it doesn't have to happen to one by one, but you actually have to make an effort now. You actually have to come out into the world as an individual and not hide like writers have all throughout the past. And that is a scary thought for most people. And this is actually what drives a lot of people to quit. Because most of us know how to work hard. We work 40 hours a week. We maybe participated in sports in high school, and we understand what it's going to take to get good. Even if we're like, man, that may take 5 or 10 years. But why do 99% of authors, people who call themselves authors, not sit down at the desk daily and continue to improve? It's because their axiomatic programming of why they want to be a writer is totally screwed up. And this should be the same for all art. But the reason you should be in this game right now is to not have insta hoes in your DMs, or to finally show your family that they were wrong and you were a great artist or a great author. It's not to compete with Frank Herbert or anything like that. It's to communicate a message to someone else and change their life. That's it. If your reasoning for being an author or an artist is not that, and you're actually trying to make people read your work, then you need to get out of the game right now. You are literally crowding the space and are a major net negative on what we are trying to do. And changing people's lives most of the time is not a very intellectual affair. It actually mostly is connecting to the collective unconscious, connecting to whatever you want to say art is, and filling a need for people out in the world. It's very rare that an artist or an author is out of their time. Like, we hear about it. We hear like, oh, this artist was misunderstood. But most of the time, there is at least some form of reception during their life. And if there isn't, their work just wasn't widely distributed enough. Just the publishing houses or something didn't understand them. But in 2024, you have the opportunity to create something if you connect to kind of that artistic energy that does serve a purpose. But the intellect, logic, is the antithetical energy to being able to tap into that. If you are overthinking, if you are being a logic bro or even a lit bro, you will never be able to tap into that energy. And Murakami talks about how people who critique writing, people who love to read, they most of the time are not good writers because they cannot tap into this. This is why people like Harold Bloom and a lot of the other best critics, of recent memory were not the best writers. And this is why so many academics fail to write any kind of great fiction. But then we have another double bind here, that when you have an artist, let's say, that isn't super intelligent but can emotionally kind of connect to that artistic energy, then a lot of the time they are in a situation where they do need money, where they can't just starve, they can't make that sacrifice, they aren't really attuned to that. And so they go out into the world, they make these rationalizations in their head like, hey, I'm just going to work for a while and write on my free time. But then suddenly they have a mortgage, they have a family, they have pets, they have injuries, they're getting older, and suddenly their writing dreams are slowly slipping away. And that's plenty of you guys out there right now. If I asked you when you were 16, 18, 22 years old, are you going to be a writer? You would say, yes, I can do it. But now the weight and responsibility of life has kind of overtaken you. And because you maybe aren't some high IQ individual, you can't go get some job that you go and work 40 hours a week at that's maybe hard, but you make $300,000 a year and you can find the space to go take a 1 month trip to, Rome with your family and have a bunch of time to write. Like, you just don't have the, economic mobility to get it going. And people who are connected to kind of that artistic energy are also not very big fans of hustle culture, because that's what it turns into. When you look at Octavia Butler and Toni Morrison, they both had families and careers and would have to wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and only have a couple hours of sleep to get their writing in and go throughout their day. And this is why I think they were somewhat unhealthy individuals. And plenty of other authors have had to do a similar sacrifice. I think of Stephen King, even Haruki Murakami, staying up and writing until 5 or 6 a.m. and not getting any sleep. There's a certain determination that, that drives a person to do that. And what I have found, once again, it's because they know that there is a message that's important to get out to the world. When you look at Toni Morrison, she was like, I want to bring kind of a literary voice. I want to bring the Southern Black dialect and characters who are living in the South into kind of this beautiful literary fiction world, which had been done before, but Morrison took it to a new level. When you look at a person like Murakami, he understood that Japanese fiction hadn't really dived too deep into magical realism yet. He saw this hole that Japanese society is, with Shinto and stuff, very much pagan still, and that they would appreciate novels and stories like that. And his personality was kind of very much aligned with that. And you saw that. Even his early novels, which aren't my favorite, are very much aligned with what he eventually ended up doing. And I could go on and on about authors who felt like their art had a place in the world. And that helps you overcome the idea that you can't force yourself to write, because so many people out there, so many writers say, I only can write when the motivation comes to me. I only can do it like that. And that maybe is true for like a poetry or something like that, which can be very much inspired. But when we're looking at a novel, a project that should take you thousands of hours, then you have to show up every single day, because it's not just taking you thousands of hours. Like I just said, you probably have to do multiple of those projects before you even hit your peak and write something that actually can have a massive artistic impact on the world. And so that's the other big complaint, that when push comes to shove, you may need to listen to motivational music. You may need to get affirmations going. You may need to be on a writing schedule and do all these things that may seem antithetical to kind of this artistic integrity. But if you have a mission, then you will find a way there no matter what. And I don't think that Murakami or a lot of these authors had these kind of project managers on their computer and Scrivener and a timer and all these other things. And I don't think you really need it either. But that is an option to create more accountability so that you can get this done, because the faster that you kind of put in that first 10,000 hours, the faster you will get the eventual reward and be able to quit your job, be able to go out into the world. And if on the path to you becoming, let's say, a peak author, an author that's going to write the best work of their life after, 10 to 20 years of practice, if that entire time you are marketing and building your own brand in a very small way, I'm not talking about going crazy, but just maybe putting in and doing something every single day, maybe making an Instagram post, maybe releasing a blog post or a short story every once in a while and speaking about it to the general public online, I guarantee you by the time you reach your peak, you will have a massive audience that is at least 10,000 people, if not way more, if you actually put in the work. And so then when you release something, people are going to be like, oh my God, this is actually good. Wow. And then word of mouth will spread, because I know authors who have something that's very good and they release it and they're expecting word of mouth to take over. But word of mouth requires at least a couple thousand, if not 10,000 people to read something and then spread it out into the world to create any form of kind of momentum, unless you get really lucky. And so that's something that you can be doing. And once again, if you actually have a vision, if you actually have a need and you are doing something important, sitting down and doing a little bit of social media or a little bit of writing on Substack or making a podcast or something isn't going to feel icky. It's not, I'm not like to market myself. It's not going to feel like that. It's going to feel easy to do if you actually understand where you are going. And this is why so many writers quit. They have no idea where they are going. They put too much pressure on themselves. They tell their family, tell everyone, I'm going to be a writer one day, yada, yada, yada. And people start to ask, well, where's your writing? Can I read your writing? This and that. And I've been there before. I've needed to take a break for years from writing to be able to recalibrate and actually focus on what I wanted to focus on without any pressure. And now I'm in a spot where I'm going to be releasing my book, Desert Orpheus, and I feel in a very good very good position. And when I'm looking at my future too, I'm like, wow, I've kind of set myself up to be able to peak, in 10 or 15 years. I'm like, wow. I love what I'm doing right now, but I can only imagine with the mentality I have now and the kind of community I'm building, the impact I'm going to be having, a decade in the future. I mean, it's going to be massive. And I want you to build something very similar. I've only been actually taking YouTube seriously for a couple years now. And so once again, it's not wrong to quit, but quitting most of the time should be a recalibration process. It should be because you have gone too far down a negative path with like your mentality. And also experiencing life can be really important. Like sometimes being not lost, but infatuated in a relationship, infatuated with, nature, or even like, getting out into the world for the first time and working on a career should take precedence over your writing, because it's going to give you so much more and establish you so much more in the world when you come back to the desk. Like now that I'm like in a stable position with a job and I have a wife and a family and all these other things, I actually feel way better than when I didn't have a job and I had all day to write, because I understand who I can impact. I understand that I have a support system behind me and it grounds me, because a lot of artists are very scattered, very out there, very fragmented, drinking coffee, smoking weed, smoking cigs, drinking alcohol, all these other things. But you can't really be doing that and be a good employee, a good husband, a good pet owner, a good citizen of the earth. And thus you develop good habits that then translate to writing, to be able to wake up early and do these things. And so I believe in each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. If you feel like quitting, tell us why down in the comments below. Honestly, like trauma dump. Tell us why that you've quit in the past. Tell us why you're quitting right now. Tell us what's holding you back, because I'm here to help you. I'm here to listen. Like listening and reading your stories always helps me kind of ground and realize that this is not an easy game, that this is sometimes a very scary path. And, I'm sure you'll get support from me and others down in the comments below if you need some. If not, thanks for just listening. And if you want to join my Haruki Murakami book club, we are about to start reading 3 Murakami novels, 1 Q8 for Norwegian Wood and Kafka on the Shore. So if you want to read Murakami with me, talk about Murakami with me every single week, you should think about joining. I also have over 17 other books that we are reading right now in the book club, which makes us the most active book club in the world. Plus, you get access to a bunch of other cool stuff over on Substack, including daily podcasts where I talk about stuff that is too meta or I just can't talk about over here on YouTube. So thank you guys for the support, and I will see you in the next video very soon.